I think what I enjoy most about bookkeeping is the black and whiteness of it. Without correct financials, you'd be making Mickey Mouse decisions, so you'd be flying blind. It's like going into the forest without a compass. Also, I appreciate the trends in a file. The bookkeeping ultimately is the building blocks of the bigger, harder decisions. So without stable bookkeeping that is correct and complete, the reporting is going to confuse the business owner and their team.
Well, I think for me, what I like about bookkeeping is it gives you an insight into clients' business. Like, you have an understanding of how their business functions. You get to know their vendors, their customers, how their industry flows. And so when it comes to a business advisory aspect, to be the bookkeeper also, I think really gives us an edge in which we can give them better advisory because we're inside their data all the time anyway. I also just like the fact that there's patterns and flow to it, where, like Alex said, there's a black and white nature to it, but there also is a level of mystery too, where it's fun to figure out, like, what's this for, what's that for. And there's also the satisfaction of helping a client maximize their tax deductions and help save them money that they can put back into their business.
We have partnered with Pure Bookkeeping. So that's a global community of bookkeepers that support us, and we get weekly group coaching. To build a solid financial foundation, you need a solid chart of accounts. What we do is we really assess the chart of accounts as soon as we first glance at a file. We assess if there are accounts that should not be there. Our job is to optimize that chart of accounts and ultimately improve it and revise it, at least on an annual basis at a bare minimum.
When it comes to a building, if there's anything wrong with the foundation, then everything else is compromised after it. If you want good reporting, if you want to know what your reports are saying, like your balance sheet, your profit loss, if your chart of accounts isn't set up properly, then you're not going to get that. It's a fine balance between granularity. If you have too much granularity, you can lose a lot of the important data. If you don't have enough granularity, you don't know enough about what's going on. So there is a fine balance. One of the things about Pure Bookkeeping is they've set us up with a chart of accounts that really hit that precise Goldilocks zone that is really hard to find. If you don't build your building on a strong foundation, it's really hard to make up for that later on. The chart of accounts is a foundation. So on your typical big high-rise construction, let's use that as a big project, for example, usually you'll have a typical floor. And the first floor will be different. Sometimes the second floor will be different. And then the penthouse or sub-penthouse will be different. But then everything in between is all the same. It's a typical floor. You just keep redoing the same floor over and over again. So in a catch-up cleanup job, that's what often will happen, is it's just the same stuff repeating, whether that's a cycle of a month, a quarter, or a year. Sometimes for the bigger jobs, we're used to dealing with these big catch-up cleanups. We actually have a greater understanding of your file now because we spend that time getting caught up and cleaned up. If your books aren't where you want them to be, don't worry, don't be embarrassed. We see it all the time. And in fact, we're happy to help you out.
This is where we see a lot of parallels between the bookkeeping industry and the construction industry. One of our core specialties is catch-up cleanup bookkeeping. No mess is too great for us. We've seen a lot over the years and we can handle it and we're up for the challenge. Like a project manager with a huge project that could be really overwhelming, we like to break down a big project into manageable, smaller chunks. And so how we do that is through close collaboration with you, but also with constant communication with you as well. So one of our big catch-up cleanup projects, it was a few years. We had to clean up and catch up, and that can be the norm usually. When someone says they're behind, we're kind of holding our breath and thinking it's not necessarily 12 months or less. Sometimes it can be 1, 2, 3 plus years behind. So we don't discriminate, and honestly, we get it. We get that you are busy. There are other things on your plate, and frankly, the finances, the bank balance accounting comes up. However, going back to the project management side of things, with a big catch-up cleanup job, we have after-action reviews with our team. You know, what went well, what didn't go so smoothly, and what we could improve upon in the future. That's very similar to how a project manager should be running things, and we definitely have some great tools in our tool belt to help us achieve those objectives. The big thing is just making sure that communication and collaboration remain intact. There's something very satisfying about getting it caught up and getting it cleaned up. The catch-up cleanup is very closely tied to each other. Often if someone's behind, the quality just isn't there. We are about quality first and foremost, and we can discuss timelines and things like that. Ultimately, we are really really going through with a fine-tooth comb, making sure things look okay. And so when it comes to tax time, talking to your accountant, we want to develop a close relationship with them as well.
Well, I'd say one essential tool of the trade for construction is a tape measure. Every single trade uses a tape measure because everyone needs to be on the same standard. Now, in the business world, standard is the laws, the regulations that we follow, and the standard can also be as simple as the chart of accounts. That's a very important one. There's some more specialized tools. Not every trade uses a hammer, but hammer is an important one. Also, it's overlooked, but a tool belt. It's really hard to do a job if you have to constantly stop and grab a tool. You'll see most people on a construction site having a tool belt. I would say that's your app stack. So if you're on the Intuit side, QuickBooks partners really well with Dext, and we really like to use WagePoint for payroll. Whereas let's say on the xero side, which partners really well with HubDoc. And if you're not using these specialty apps that really make your life easier, like I can think of Dext or HubDoc as basically being like a tool belt where you put all your documents and then you have them right when you need them. It's hard to really compare them, but I would say a tape measure, being on the same page, knowing the same standard, using the same units of measurement is the same as everything else.
There are a lot of apps out there, and they help improve our day-to-day. With the right tools in place, we can provide even more value to you as well. We partner exclusively with QuickBooks Online and Xero. These tools are there to do the heavy lifting. So there's a lot of automation power natively within these apps. So let's get some of these tools optimized and set up correctly. They should be doing the heavy lifting for you. So a lot of the time you can automate some of this email traffic that's coming in and have it be auto-submitted to the Dext inbox. Dext is essentially a really powerful filing system as well as a really powerful audit log. So it stores all your bills, all your receipts, and then that information also gets pushed to your cloud accounting software, whether it's QuickBooks Online, QBO, or Xero. So if the CRA or IRS comes knocking and wants an audit, that auditor is certainly not interested in logging in to that third-party platform. They just want to be able to access, for example, the 10 largest bills, the 10 largest invoices. And fortunately, apps like this are very export friendly. Again, going back to the foundation, why it's so important. Without good bookkeeping, you can't accurately forecast. You can't actually plan for the future. Some business owners, especially in the construction industry, they don't always feel confident knowing which job site is doing well and pricing on jobs, knowing what materials are associated with which job site. Those cracks start to show. If the bookkeeping is not intact, we will work very closely with you, and we want to help you develop a budget and help those reports make sense.
Forecasting and planning, it's not really a science, it's more of an art sometimes. Like on construction sites, you find that the schedule will constantly be in flux and is constantly changing. And it's actually the more well-run construction sites that find themselves not having that happen too often. But it doesn't mean you can't try and plan for it. And what a lot of really good project management or site superintendents will do is they will make up time or try and get ahead as much as they can. If nothing ends up happening, they're done early, and that's great, which is very rare. If something does happen, they've created a bit of a buffer space. That's what is important with financial planning. You want to keep a real close eye on your ratios, like your operating expenses ratio, and to make sure that you're not pushing yourself too far. And you also want to create room or resources and capacity for your company to grow or to develop or change. So you want to have capital, you want to have capacity in which to grow and take on new opportunities. And if you don't know what's going on right now, if you can't understand the interworkings, you can't forecast into the future, but it also can help you weather lean times. Like you almost have, like, not quite the same
and stable. Oh, okay. And we assess if there are, if
you want every
I can really good. Okay, so what am I doing? Okay, so with one of our
big clients.
Yeah. Okay, hold on. And yeah, I'm rambling.
She's a rambling. Let's go.
Yeah, you can do it.
Okay. Well.
But also, what's that? Okay, you're wrong.
Okay.
And yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next question.